I want the audience to know and the media outlets to know that Judge Peinado has been persecuted, that Judge Viedma has been persecuted, that there was a list of targets, including Judge Marchena, that there were safe houses, that there were a series of expenses paid by the Socialist Party, and that his indictment is imminent in the coming hours, in the coming days. And that all this was done not because we were investigative journalists like Albert Castellón, private prosecutors, or judges. All this was done to try to cover up the corruption that is absolutely rotting Spain from within.
The tricks you can pull with 2.5 million votes, which clearly changes the scenario and abruptly changes the voter rolls, and that he is going to manage it like no one has ever done before. He is going to manage it. He is going to go to Hispanic America and manage those 2.5 million votes. I think that's his strategy to try to survive. And unfortunately, I think we're not fully aware that this is the case and that there's a good chance it could work out for him.
And what has been shown in the elections in Colombia as well. Why is this important? Because two things have been demonstrated. First, that the radical left is deeply anti-democratic. All of them, at the moment they have felt close to losing power, have resorted to violence or to attempting to dismantle democratic institutions. And number two, look, how curious. At the moment when the funding for the propaganda of the radical left and socialism that was coming through the Biden administration was cut off. With USAID, look, how curious. They have lost a lot of funds that allow them to manipulate, get into institutions, and so on, etc. And what the citizens really want comes out.
I want to address Mercedes González, the Director General of the Civil Guard. Some people were surprised to see her relations with Leire. I wasn't. I don't know anyone who looks more like a shady fixer than the current Civil Guard Director General. I asked her to leave in honor of the Civil Guard, the Benemerita, and the services they have rendered to Spain. She should take the Dow with her, and all the commanders who allow themselves to be corrupted and try to influence members of the UCO to look the other way in certain cases. We need a clean Civil Guard, one that leaves no room for doubt, and the presence of this Director General in the Civil Guard casts doubt and uncertainty on everything. I propose that the heads of the UCO be appointed as Director Generals of the Civil Guard.
Castillón Confidencial, by Albert Castellón.
Welcome,
insiders. Thank you for being there. Strength and honor, and let's press on for freedom of the press and individual liberty. Look, over the last 4 years, we managed to win many battles. A handful of honest civil guards and police officers, a few prosecutors, and even fewer journalists. And they have managed to have the wife of the Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, put on trial for 4 crimes: corruption in business, influence peddling, embezzlement of public funds, and misappropriation. 4 crimes for which the private prosecutors, who have done a brilliant job, are asking for up to 24 years in prison just for Begoña Gómez. What can I say? The defense is asking for the case to be dismissed, and the prosecution will do whatever Sanchez says. It doesn't exist. The prosecution is not there to defend ordinary citizens, but to protect the privileges of the gentleman and his party. It's sad, but that's how it is. The prosecution is also seeking dismissal of the case. The investigation phase, which almost cost Judge Peinado his life, has already been closed. He's going to turn 73 this September, and he has endured all kinds of insults and threats during 2 years of investigation. They have found out where his house is, and he has found graffiti on his door. They spread the rumor that he had 2 IDs, that he had bought an illegal property without papers. Well, absolutely everything. to destroy him, and if they couldn't kill him physically, to destroy him socially. And he endured despite his age and the pressure until nightfall, already into the night yesterday, when he said, "My work ends here." Now it will be a judge from the national court who will handle the case. And they should be prepared, because whoever it is in the national court, they will be insulted by the government. And Minister Bolaños will threaten them. Sanchez himself will say it's lawfare. Oscar Puente, who throws that around easily, will talk about the fachosfera. Whoever the judge is, they should be prepared. Look, the mafia in Italy used to kill judges. In Spain, they're getting close. It started with targeting people, public shaming, and civil death. The other will come too if the same people keep governing. And I assure you, what we're talking about is more dangerous than it seems. The humble journalists who have dared to investigate a little, dig a little deeper. In my case, we still believe that Begoña Gómez has accounts in the Dominican Republic. We've given her account numbers here, and that she asked to be naturalized and she got it. We also believe that's true. And that caused constant tax inspections against me, harassment, threats on social media, being singled out on television networks, Channel 1 or Channel 6, especially insults. We have had to endure our share just for doing our job, which is to investigate and tell you what we find. For more than a year during the investigation, it was said that it was all false. In their second year, they moved on to action, to direct threats. I insist that this cesspool, governed and directed by Sanchez to protect his own, is more dangerous than it seems. It doesn't stop at fake invoices or at orders to steer prosecutors willing to go along. No, this goes further. And we confirm it in Leire's famous notebooks. I want you to see one of them. Page 33 of this handwritten document by Leire the plumber. Look, at the bottom it says, and it's even underlined, containers of cocaine. And then it says, from the yes with the lady, company. Algeciras. Further down, UDEF, that's the name of the hydrocarbons group, and then PDVSA traders. I mean, from the Venezuelan oil company. Leire wrote this on February 1st, 2025. What does she mean by the cocaine containers? What does Leire know about containers? And there's more. On Friday, the third Leire then writes in her own handwriting, Victor, she's referring to Victor de Aldama, and the other three set up a lab for them in the Dominican Republic. Lab. And they opened the accounts in the Dominican Republic. In fact, they even talk about connections with Gibraltar. Text typical of a gang involved in drug trafficking, right? Don't forget that we told you here that the company Plus Ultra allegedly transported the Cartel of the Sands drugs, that they knew about it. And that's why they rushed to bail it out. That's the important part, the one that no one is investigating yet, the one that isn't in any court, the one that no one has wanted to get involved in. According to our information, only the United States will do it, and through Rodríguez Zapatero. But that's another story I'll tell you another day. Look, gentlemen, Begoña Gómez's cocky, defiant attitude before Judge Peinado yesterday was unbelievable. More than 3.5 hours with all kinds of privileges, entering the garage with an escort, as if she were a public official. Not even Rodrigo Rato or Esperanza Aguirre did that, but she did. She went through the garage. And what was worse, the image of her sitting there, staring straight into Peinado's eyes. Who was there? Luis María Pardo and Justicia Europa, acting as the private prosecution. How are you?
Good morning. Hello, everyone. Confidenciales. Well, let's talk a bit about the details of what happened yesterday, which was truly, I would say, nightmarish.
Nightmarish. First of all, the precautionary measures will be known before Thursday because Judge Peinado didn't want to speed things up, and it was already almost 11 when he was leaving the courthouse. You're still requesting the withdrawal of the passport and appearance in court, right?
That's right. And that it be authorized in case the withdrawal of the passport is not decided for official trips to be allowed with prior judicial approval, which seems completely logical to me, in addition to checking in at the courthouse every week. What would anyone do if they were facing a case like this with the years in prison that we are asking for?
How was Begoña Gómez dressed?
Well, allow me not to comment on how she was dressed. I can tell you that she was dressed as she has been on other occasions, and what stood out was that she entered through the garage again. I was saying yesterday, in the end, all these people come in through the sewer, right? They come in through the underworld, through the sewer, right? They come in through the part where regular citizens can't enter. By the way, in Plaza de Castilla, but these VIPs can enter there instead of coming in through the main entrance, which is what you, I, or anyone else would do. Also, you said it well at the beginning. What kind of distinction does the wife of the president of the government have that she doesn't have to enter through the main entrance? I mean, no one is going to attack her or anything. It's not a security issue. Maybe it's just that Spanish society, or maybe they want Spanish society to still live in a rather childish environment.
I'm telling you, I have other sources at the place who said she was dressed in black, austere, with high heels, very haughty. But above all, very defiant. Confirm for me if it's true. They tell me she stared straight into Judge Peinado's eyes.
I'm telling you, there were a lot of looks exchanged during those 3 hours from many of the parties and people who were there, looking at each other. And that it hasn't changed, or there hasn't been, let's say, any difference compared to the other time she was there and the situations that have happened. Tension, real tension, just from seeing it. I know that the news outlets often look for what's behind all of this. And the word that defines it, it would be tension, a lot of tension, not for nothing, not for nothing. What's at stake is that she might not be able to leave the country, that she has to go sign in, and that she has to face a jury trial in the community of Madrid. Therefore, the tension was palpable in the air.
In other words, the complete opposite of regret or keeping her head down like she did the first time.
Yes, and that's absolutely ruled out, yes. They still think that all of this has been built under the umbrella of some lunatics who decided to file a complaint. And that all of this has been followed by a judge, and that behind it are the civil guard and the private prosecutors, all working together. Today on the agenda there was Leire, which you will surely cover well. They are coordinated. We have to be coordinated too, he said. And I say, we are not coordinated, Albert. We are civil society. You, me, the news outlets, all the people. I mean, no, we fight for something we believe is common, which is Spain. On the other hand, they fight for evil. That's why they unite and coordinate. We don't coordinate. What we do is try to do good with certain causes we pursue, such as legal action, but also communication efforts or any other type of action on a daily basis.
Therefore, she will be judged. She will be judged by a popular jury and the laws. There is no other way. She has no other choice. And the precautionary measures will be known before Thursday. When would that trial start at the National Court? And when will we know which judge will be assigned to her? Because the poor judge who gets assigned to her will receive harassment, all kinds of pressure, just as has already happened.
So on the one hand, legally speaking, in today's preliminary hearing, there is no appeal, unless Judge Peinado decides to dismiss the case regarding the facts. And therefore, that's not going to happen. In principle, there is no appeal to what happened today. So this now has to go to the formal opening of the trial by Judge Peinado, and the case will be sent to a judge who will be appointed by the provincial court, who will be the investigating judge. From then on, the whole procedure will follow. Afterward, there will be a jury trial, there will be a trial, and 9 jurors from the community of Madrid will judge him. Well, in the end, we can say that the people are not going to judge Pedro Sanchez in this matter. On one hand, the Provincial Court of Badajoz, and on the other hand, a jury from the Community of Madrid under an investigating judge from the Provincial Court of Madrid. When will that happen? That's probably what people are asking the most.
Let's listen. Well,
if everything goes well, and the Provincial Court resolves the two remaining appeals before August, which is possible, we could find ourselves in September with a case being sent to the Provincial Court so that it can be processed for a jury trial. And we could probably be talking about a trial for Begoña Gómez at the end of this year or the beginning of next year, most likely before Pedro Sánchez, if he wants to call elections, actually calls them. Thank you.
congratulations, well done, because 2 years ago we weren't so sure when we started the investigations. The press, when the UCO started searching, when Peinado took a step forward, when you and the private prosecutors took the lead, we didn't expect to achieve it, and it has been achieved. And that is a defense of the rule of law that deserves unanimous congratulations. Today is a great day. Pardo, keep that in mind.
Yes, and if you let me, I want to. Apart from congratulating the private prosecutors, I want the audience to know, and the insiders to know, that Judge Peinado has been persecuted. That Judge Viedma has been persecuted. That there was a target list with Judge Marchena. That there were safe houses. That there were a series of expenses paid by the Socialist Party. That it is imminent in the next few hours, in the coming days, her being formally named as a suspect. And that all this was done not because we were investigative journalists like Albert Castellón, private prosecutors, or judges. All this was done in an attempt to cover up the corruption that is absolutely rotting Spain. That's why they moved to protect each other. And that's why they said we were the muck, when in reality they were the muck and the mire, not us. And today that has become perfectly clear.
Congratulations, Luis Maria. A big hug. Congratulations. We keep reporting with you.
A hug.
Welcome. Confidencial.
Join us at the House of Sparkling Water, BC Catalan.
The thing about mafias, my friends, is that when one of them is discovered and is in prison or about to go in, they start talking and hinting that they know a lot. Not so that the judge will ask him, the judge will do that anyway, but so that his own people will protect him. The list of those protected by the Sanchez mafia keeps getting bigger. It started with Coldo Garcia, who left the hard drives out in the open so the civil guard would find them, completely on purpose. It continued with José Luis Ábalos, who leaked audio recordings, for example, to the newspaper El Mundo. And he also did his interviews with Inda and with his main show on Cuatro, Risto Mejide's show. By the way, I've been told he was getting paid by both. Well, that's not coming from me. That's what Coldo Garcia's best friend on this show, Leopoldo Bernabeu, says. Remember?
He says goodbye to me, tells me he's going to Madrid. Tomorrow, he'll spend 4 hours meeting with a media outlet. I know it was two media outlets all afternoon. I ask why you tell them things you won't tell me. He says, it's very simple, Leopoldo, because I don't have money to pay this lawyer, and the only way I can have a fair defense and have someone pay for it is by giving a series of headlines to 2 media outlets. Obviously, it's clear which 2 media outlets spend weeks releasing small pieces of the interview with videos, right? Right?
Well, that's it. There are lawyers who get paid by negotiating exclusives. That's nothing new. But we in the press should reflect on what Leopoldo just said. But anyway, Coldo, Ábalos, Santos, Cerdán, and now Leire Diaz. Supposedly, all 4 of them are blackmailing the PSOE, keeping quiet in exchange for protection. If I don't go to jail, I won't tell what I know. In other words, it's an organized mafia gang. It's a criminal organization. That's beyond doubt. What they do is keep silent in exchange for protection.
Leire gave an interview to El Correo in which she says,
I know much more than what's in the appointment books. By the way, she also says, I've never been with Pedro Sanchez in my life. Well, let's see. We're going to show you Leire Diez with Pedro Sanchez. Photo from 2015, photo from 2016, 2017, 2020, 2021, 2023. 6 photos. Here they are, showing Leire with Sanchez. But anyway, she keeps saying no. But Yukio has proven that TS is Pedro Sanchez, which we all knew. We'll expand on this now. Leire said something very curious in that interview. She says, from what I've been told, Sanchez, as if she didn't know him, right? From what I've been told, Sanchez has such a bad temper that everyone is terrified because nobody dares to say anything to him. And that's true. Shouting in Moncloa, orders with fist pounding on the table. Sanchez is like that. Luis Lozada, Distrito TV, how are you? How's it going, my friend? How are you?
Alberto, hi there.
The list of alleged blackmailers is getting longer, isn't it?
Yes. There are lots of blackmailers, lots of people tied to the scheme. The truth is that the scheme is getting bigger and also more connected, because Zapatero's scheme appears to be linked to the Las Cloacas scheme, to the La Sepi scheme, and to the hydrocarbons scheme. We're talking about the same thing since it's all called the Socialist Party. Now they'll try to build a firewall and say that Leire was just some fantasist and did her own thing, and so on and so on. But come on, the reality is right there on the table. He was funded and directed by the Socialist Party, with evidence supporting both claims. And all proof indicates everything was orchestrated from Ferraz. The Prime Minister was either clueless if unaware, or responsible if he knew.
Gentlemen, the document that shows that PS meant President Sanchez is this one. You can see it. It's in the UCO report that was made public yesterday. It's another handwritten note from Leire 10 that says, we need to find a lawyer for PS's brother. It's obvious. It already shows that PS's brother needs a lawyer, in case anyone had any doubts. It says, also include as a private prosecution, and Esmes comes up, and then Esmes is erased. Do you understand this, Luis?
No, honestly, I don't.
I know that Lesmes was president of the Supreme Court, but he has nothing to do here. At the same time, it says we have to file a complaint with the prosecutor's office in Madrid, in parentheses. I mean, to Cianuro.
Cianuro, yes, exactly, Cianuro.
Miss Cyanide. Come on, this woman was absolutely incontinent because she kept everything, wrote everything down, confessed everything. Honestly, there was no one else in the PSOE who could handle the dirty work except Leire or Dolcet. And these people with such a low level of protection, of surveillance, they're third-rate mafiosos. Let's see, Carlos Marcos, how are you? How are you, my friend?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Luis.
I'm complaining that they're picking second-rate dirty tricks operatives. I wonder why.
You know what, Alberto? Albert, usually I tend to seem angry about these topics, but today I don't want to get angry because I think it's an absolutely deep and serious issue, what's happening. That crosses any red line we could have set just 6 months or a year ago. The democratic system is being sugar-coated, destroyed, and eroded. Pedro Sanchez is putting absolutely every asset, every hint of legal security in Spain at risk. And this is extremely serious because at the street level, this is starting to look like a farce and people are amused. Because, of course, putting together a squad for the dirty work that's full of people who are intellectually destitute, in other words, incapable people, disgraceful people, people that no one in their right mind would choose in their company to carry out any project beyond the streets farce, there's a real situation here. The state is putting the prosecutor's office at risk, as shown. Cerdà's notes in the latest UCO report give an instruction to the Attorney General's office to effectively remove the judge from Badajoz from the matter involving the brother. For the Attorney General's office to rebuke the judge.
Look, let's take a look at the document. Let's see it. You're seeing it now, the UCO document from the latest report. It says, Badajoz, that the prosecutor's office supports the recusal. That is to say, you have to put yourself in the position, Luis, an air conditioning and maintenance technician. That's what Santos Evdan was. Does he have the authority to give orders to the prosecutor's office? Is that it?
That's exactly it. But the worst part is not just that there are orders, is that the orders are actually carried out. Why? Because, as Sanchez used to say, who does the prosecutor's office depend on? Well, that's it. So that hierarchical relationship is corrupted to give orders that are absolutely illegal. And there are people who follow them. Why? Well, because they know that by doing what those in power want, they have a better chance of advancing. I mean, Prosecutor Cyanide has advanced professionally. Because loyalty to the scheme is highly prized. It's rewarded. So this mafia is not arbitrary. It rewards good behavior and punishes bad. In other words, it is a mafia.
Carlos, we're halfway through talking about the destroyed institutions, aren't we?
Yes, but before we move on from the topic of the prosecutor's office, I want to highlight what they announced to us yesterday about the creation of 700 new positions in the justice system for judges and prosecutors. With this, they intend to rig the judicial career path, indoctrinating future candidates who will soon be administering justice under the direction of a socialist government. This call has been made precisely to increase the number of judges and prosecutors and to alter the balance that exists within a body that, despite everything, enjoys great prestige. But if we add to this the grandchildren law, which aims to manipulate the electoral roll to include voters who have never set foot in Spain in their lives, to try to change the outcome of possible elections, we are talking about major issues. But we're talking about a Santos Cerdán who still yesterday had the nerve to say, there's nothing, no scheme, I haven't done anything illegal.
Listen to him. He went to sign before the judge. He has to sign every 15 days to prove he hasn't fled Spain. They put a microphone in front of him and he said this.
We haven't set up any scheme. I haven't set up any scheme. I haven't done anything illegal, and I hope justice will clear everything up.
Thank you. She says he's in charge of the scheme.
Well, I repeat that there is no scheme, nothing. I didn't set up any scheme, absolutely, and I hope that justice will clear it up soon.
If she's saying this, it's because the agreement with the PSOE is already finalized. There's no other explanation. I mean, it's already decided that they're gonna remove me from this, that if I'm in prison, it won't be for more than 2 months. Whatever they've agreed on, which I don't know about. But if not, she wouldn't say this, Carlos, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know the strategy because the current PSOE is completely unpredictable. There isn't any moral authority there, right? That's what they used to say Zapatero was. The PSOE has no one like that. It has an autocrat running the government and serving as the party's secretary general. And he's now the only one making all the decisions. And he's so overwhelmed because reality is getting the better of him that I think he's isolated himself. He was already locked away in Moncloa to separate himself a bit from reality, from the citizens. But there are so many cases in this big week for Ferraz, if you want to call it that Pedro Sánchez has isolated himself. He doesn't care what happens. Absolutely nothing matters. We should remember that Leire just made a little jab, reminding Pedro Sánchez that she says she's more valuable for what she keeps to herself than for what she reveals. And that's a full-blown threat. Hey, take care of me. Some conversations have also been leaked with the president of the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party herself, in which Leire supposedly told her, don't leave me hanging because we are all going to jail. It's a mafia that's breaking apart from the inside. It's falling to pieces. Everyone is looking for a lifeline in this shipwreck. But in the end, they're all practically out of air. And the only one still holding on is Sanchez. And under his command, all those who have become professional politicians and who outside of politics have no way to make a living. Therefore, saving President Sanchez is a top priority for all the sycophants who live off power and live very well. But if we add to this that there has been an attempt to dismantle the UCO, that is an attempt to dismantle the UCO with the knowledge of the Director General of the Civil War herself, who also met with Leire, with this supposed grassroots member, whose identity is unknown, who was portrayed as Antonita the Fantastic. But damn, she walked into Ferraz like she owned the place. She walked into the General Directorate of the Civil War like she owned the place. She walked into the State Prosecutor's office like she owned the place. She did whatever she wanted, and now she's warning them that she has things to tell, that they shouldn't push her. If we add to this that Boral Zapatero, a key figure, has had enough, and now it's not just about Europe and the business with Venezuela or with China, but also the jewels they found on him. The one who wrote the Code of Good Conduct for politicians back in the day, to cash in jewels that, according to the appraised value, exceed 1,300,000, and according to the market price, could double that appraisal. Because what was appraised at Sorena is not the market value of those jewels, but the value of the stones that make up the jewel and the goldsmith flavor. This is the cost price, we could say, so it will be higher. But just to top it all off, Miguel Sebastián, the former minister, shows up. I have to say, he did have some good actions as a minister, like eliminating the wealth tax, which Mariano Rajoy later brought back. But in any case, Miguel Sebastián comes out and says, damn, back then it was normal to keep the gifts. But what are you talking about? And he didn't even keep them. He was smart. He left them in a display case, which was careless, because you don't know how much those gifts in the display case are worth. Apparently accessible to anyone who visits that ministry. It's such a crazy thing that it really reminds me a lot of Cam's Suits, because they wanted to put him in jail for that, and in the end he was acquitted. But compared to all this cesspool of shit we're uncovering, this is absolutely disappointing. But it's very serious, very, very, very serious. They're trying to break our system, our democracy, in every area, and through all the institutions that Pedro Sánchez has colonized in these last 8 years of government.
You wanted to clarify something, Luis, about the 700 judges and prosecutors who are going to be quickly incorporated into the justice system under the Bolaños plan. Tell me.
I think this is the key, because right now the government is absolutely overwhelmed. Judicial matters have him completely boxed in, and therefore I think his only strategy, although Zerdan says that justice will set things right and that there will be a pact with the PSOE, not with justice. Justice doesn't make pacts. So justice has them all lined up, and everyone knows the cases against them are going to go forward. Zapatero himself knows the case against him is going to go forward too. Right now, he's only focused on protecting his daughters. So what's the plan? Trying to discredit the judges and trying to please the judges. Therefore, my interpretation of the call for the 700 positions is not that it's about placing sympathetic judges to control justice. It's about pleasing the judges who have been complaining for years about not having enough resources to administer justice, by providing human resources so they're not overwhelmed like they are now. This way, the judges will be relatively satisfied. Strategically, it seems like a good approach to me. Although for me, I think it's going to be absolutely insufficient. First of all, because those positions are being announced today, but they will be called for next year. So this won't solve anything now. But also because the issue, the gap is so extremely big. It's not just a clever guy who took a commission from a public works project, which is the kind of corruption we were unfortunately already used to. It's an entire criminal system embedded or entrenched in the headquarters of the Socialist Party, and therefore in the government, to undermine the structures of the state. Yes, of course, the state defends itself.
But let me offer a thought. Let's see. Suddenly now, a year before the so-called elections, they announced 700 positions for judges and prosecutors. Suddenly now, they set up the grandchildren law, whose real effect on the census will take 2 to 3 years to be noticed, some say, for naturalization.
No, Albert. The grandchildren law is applied automatically. What will take 2 years is the massive regularization. The regularized ones, which by the way, the country already says are 900,000, plus those who come through family reunification, those will indeed take 2 or even 3 years, or maybe 4. But the grandchildren law, which affects 2.5 million people, 2.5 million, they become citizens today and they vote today. And that's extremely serious. And they also vote. And they also vote. And also, they can choose to vote wherever they find it convenient, whether in Madrid or in Cuenca, which might be more interesting, or in Teruel, which might interest them more, or in Alicante.
Yes, there will be an official. We don't know who it is, who will decide where they vote. But it doesn't seem to us that they are making plans. Sanchez, as if it were option A, to stay in power for many more years, or option B, to leave and come back as a candidate in a couple of years. Do you see that, Carlos? The possibility that Sanchez doesn't want to leave completely?
I don't see the issue of the Electoral Act, but I do see a possibility that I wasn't clear about before, and now I'm starting to see it clearly. The disaster Pedro Sánchez is going to leave the country in is so great, the legacy, the burden he's going to leave each one of us with, in the form of public death, in the form of institutional instability. That is possible that in a sick and twisted mind like Pedro Sánchez, there could be such a possibility. Listen, they're gonna beat me in the elections. Fine, I'm stirring things up so that the streets become unbearable. With the immigrants and Nieto's law, the streets are going to explode because the unions are now silent as lapdogs, of course, holding out their hands so that Yolanda gives them the money. And the unions, hey, not a word. They don't say anything. With a right-wing government, they would have called a general strike months ago. But with this disaster of a country, Pedro Sánchez, who has already secured the party's organizational structure to guarantee his own continuity, as Secretary General, he could wait for the disaster in the streets. The social explosion that could be triggered by the left and the unions, would it leave him a clear path to return with the debt cleaned up? It's just like what happened with Zapatero. Zapatero left Spain in ruins, and then a government from the Popular Party came in and found a colossal mess. And Rajoy betrayed all his commitments, raising all the taxes he said he would lower. And in the end, he managed to keep the men in black from overseeing us, but at the cost of people suffering. Of course, in 4 years, out of those 186 seats that were given to Mariano Rajoy, there were only 140 left, I think, because people react when you touch their wallets, and there was no other choice. Well, it's the same here. He leaves the big mess. Could a government of the Popular Party with Vox come in, and in 4 or 3 years, the instability in the streets will burn, Pedro Sánchez will run again. But with the mess he already left us solved, now is the PP's fault. Pedro Sánchez has nothing to do with it anymore. It's a possibility.
How awful. How awful.
I think it's worth remembering the images of Pedro Sánchez, well, of his people, pulling a ballot box out from under the rocks during the Socialist Party primaries. If he can do that with his own people, what might he do in a general election? We shouldn't rule it out. Therefore, in my opinion, his main strategy is to hold on. Second, to try to pull every trick possible with mail-in voting. And third, the grandchildren law. And with that, try to survive, knowing that even if things don't go well for him, he still has a 25% base that lets him make deals with the separatists who know he's too good a deal, and with the far left who know life is very hard outside government. That plus the tricks he can pull with 2.5 million votes, which clearly changes the scenario and changes the voter roll, really abruptly. He says he'll manage it better than anyone, even going to Spanish-speaking Latin America to handle those 2.5 million votes. I think that's his strategy to try to survive. And unfortunately, I don't think we're fully aware that this is the case and that he has a good chance of succeeding if we don't react in time.
Albert, keep one thing in mind, as I said many times. What can be measured is not up for debate. The elections in Andalusia have just taken place, where the Popular Party more than doubled the number of seats of the Socialist Party. However, in the overseas vote, the Socialist Party clearly won.
Yes, take note of that.
Only there.
In Extremadura, Andalusia, Aragon, everywhere the PP won, the overseas vote went to the PSOE. And we believe this is a dress rehearsal for the final rigging. But nobody talks about this here. Only a few media outlets like us do. And even less so if it's being investigated, which I don't understand. If I were the PPE, I'd already be investigating that overseas vote, right, Luis?
Yes, that's right. And be careful that they don't vote so that another one isn't called for next August, which is also possible. And therefore, mail-in voting would completely dominate. It's true that the Partido Popular at one point brought up this issue of regularizing immigrants, the vote of immigrants' grandchildren, and so on and so on. They likely assumed, like with the Fraga model, that they would win the elections with the vote from the Americas, right? But that needs to be managed. I don't see the Partido Popular managing it. People in the Partido Popular tell me they're very calm, that with the grandchildren law they'll win. I don't believe it. I think the Socialist Party is already there. They are already managing those people. They are already organizing meetings, and they are already offering them everything. Among other things, because of the possibility of coming to Spain. Ticket paid, of course, with pocket money of about 10,000 euros and boom, boom, minimum living income. And of course, for a lot of people who are in Latin America, that's huge. So be careful, because I think that warning is there. 2.5 million votes definitely change the voter rolls.
We agree. We don't think Sanchez expects people abroad to vote for him, but we believe what he wants is to have a voter roll he can use to manipulate that vote. And that's what we need to find out. Where, how, at what moment during the 8-hour trip. From the mail bags, when it gets here, when it enters Indra's computer, when is the vote manipulated? I want you to listen. Antonio, Juan Ignacio, and Alejandra.
Come on, changing the rules of the game, half the game, a general consensus, that's a coup d'etat, as much as he says, much as Zapatero talks about coups d'etat.
I think that this whole thing about voting by mail and legalizing Argentinians, people from all over the world, is being approached the wrong way. It's not that those people are going to vote for him, but those bugs are going to be on a plane for 8 hours. And on a plane, just imagine what they could do. The thing is, they don't care what the people out there vote for. They're going to have 8 hours to swap out the votes inside those bags.
What the opposition needs to do is go to Argentina and campaign there and say that everyone who has become a citizen has to declare their assets and pay taxes in Spain. That way, that you discourage them.
Well, they'll have to pay taxes, but they'll also collect pensions, and that's going to ruin generations of us for decades. What we need here is a report from the UCO to investigate what's going to happen, because it's in the hands of the foreign minister, Alvarez. That mail-in vote, not for me. That and the postal service. Who trusts that, please, for so many hours and days, right? But nobody does it. In Santander, there was a protest against Sanchez. We complain a lot, but then only a handful of people show up. Mario sends me the video, and there are very few people, just a few hundred. That call to action is still missing. It's true. In Madrid, we gather hundreds of thousands. You were with me, Carlos. But we need to take more action in the streets. Very little of it succeeds.
Well, let's see. The People's Party, as I don't want to be hurtful, but it's limiting itself to institutional activity. And it's not even using the legal options it has at its disposal to put pressure on Sanchez. You can shift the responsibility of being the opposition onto citizens in the streets, because that would mean a different system. The citizens can support actions that political leaders take in the institutions and back a certain decision. Or like when we went to Madrid the last time, we've gone several times, but anyway, people can show their anger that way. But isolated efforts, well, in Santander, we hold a demonstration. Well, in La Coruña, there's a call for one. No, look, unfortunately, the left is very good at mobilizing the streets. And the right has a problem, which is the link between the parties that represent it and the public. And therefore, there are demonstrations that can't even be counterproductive. If you call a demonstration against Sanchez and only 76 people show up, damn, you've handed Sanchez the chance to say, there you go, that's all the people who don't want me. The silent majority does want me. For the public to mobilize, and right now I think they're willing to mobilize, there needs to be a strong, joint, organized action from the political forces that could form an alternative government to Sanchez. Until that happens, I think it's very unfair to look at the public and blame them, saying, you're taking this too calmly. Listen, you and I, we are fed up with politicians, with politics, with corruption, with a toxic environment all of you have created. Now, don't come to me saying it's my fault. That would be the last straw.
No, they don't want to push things too far because they know things get worse for the Socialist Party each day. That's how they see it, and they're getting more and more caught up in their own mess, so it will get easier and they'll have more electoral options. And that may be true, but with each passing day, the erosion and the cost for the country are tremendous. I believe the People's Party should speed up the process and bring about that change as soon as possible. As for inheriting it, we've already seen how in 23 it didn't happen. Be careful, because it might not happen now either. I don't think we can rule out those tricks. And then, of course, mail-in voting doesn't have any kind of control. The government has already approved a fast track for immigrants and grandchildren to vote. There is already an alternative way to vote, therefore with fewer guarantees. Who controls the mail bags at the post office? A security guard. Yes, it's pathetic. Well, until there are civil guards controlling and guaranteeing the chain of custody, I think we're all going to have that suspicion hanging over us.
Well, until we've said it 20 times here, until Indra stops doing the counting, until the Ministry of the Interior is no longer the source giving us the data, until Correos is no longer overseeing it, what organization is controlling the mailbags? And don't appoint Sanchez's friend as the general director who was at Correos in the last general elections. Everything is done very badly, and the opposition here is looking the other way. There are just a few of us, by the way. They've once again appointed a close friend of Sanchez to a high position in the new vote counting office. Tomorrow, the Brel Araujo will tell us who he is and what we can do, because the parties have 15 days to appeal the handpicked appointee. And they're not doing it either. And the deadline is passing them by, right? Look at Q3. This is already Q3, Carlos. You like it. Maybe you've been there, Luis or Carlos, because you guys have means, not like me. La Tragantia is a fancy restaurant on Príncipe de Vergara Street. Beautiful, with an impressive terrace and an incredible menu. Well, apparently the PSOE was allegedly financed with invoices from La Tragantia, among others, of course. That's just one more thing. The UCO has found 52 invoices with identical amounts, 120, 300, 330 euros, and so on, totaling over 15,000. In what they believe are fake invoices, where they claim that 8, 12, or 11 people had lunch or dinner, but always for the same amounts. The PSOE spent an average of 2,000 euros per month at this restaurant. And that's unusual for just one restaurant. Apparently, what the UCO believes is that they were laundering small amounts, like Carmen Panos, you remember? She was the one who brought the bag with 90,000 euros in cash to the PSOE. Well, those amounts, which for them were small, were allegedly laundered with fake invoices like this one. By the way, it was the same Coldo who told people how to make the invoice and for what amount, according to what Teresa Gomez said. Have you been to La Tragantia, Carlos?
No, but I know the restaurant. I've never eaten there. But I want to say something, not so much to correct you as to clarify it. Those invoices aren't used to launder money. They're used to make it dirty. They generate fake invoices, they get cash, and with that cash, they can pay lawyers. For example, this guy Teiselo, who received 52,000 euros from the PSOE that don't appear in the Socialist Party's accounting, which the UCO analyzed. I mean, to pay for these kind of things, right? For these small things, you need some cash under the table, so that it doesn't leave a trace. And these kinds of invoices are made for that purpose. It's a different story with invoices that Coldo made at another restaurant that was to pocket a bit more money. But this operation by the Socialist Party is justified only if what you want is to make money off the books, so you can have cash on hand and take care of certain commitments. A bit from the underworld, for example.
No doubt. Sixto tells me to publish the list, the one with the journalists who have been bought.
Put up a list of the journalists who are bought too, so everyone can see it. And if you don't want to make it public, so they don't see it on your channel, send it to me, and I'll take care of exposing it to the public through another channel.
No, we'll make it public. Come on, Luis. You and I will reveal the 60 names and 40 more. But they have to be in the payment list. That's what we need to include. Because being ideological fanatics like Mercedes Mila or Jorge Javier Vázquez is not the same as being on Leire's list. Because there you had favors in exchange, right? Advertising, aid, contacts, patronage. We'll see that list, right, with first and last names, Luis.
Yes, of course we'll see it. Now, I think there are several elements here. One is those who receive compensation, money, or whatever it was. Two, those who got the talking points and echoed them in coordinated opinions, which I think is also relevant, regardless of compensation. And three, those who reached out to the political underbelly for information and then published whatever they thought was appropriate. Because I believe that the investigative journalist is obliged to go down into the sewers, ask questions, and then filter what he considers appropriate. And it's possible that among those 61 names, one of them may also be an investigative journalist, so we'll have to sort that out. In any case, I think it will be very relevant, and I also believe it doesn't need to be public, since we all already know it. Like with the UFIO, which confirms that PSA, Pedro Sánchez, we all know who makes up the coordinated media chorus, so it's a no-brainer. Look, and to make matters worse, they have no shame at all, absolutely none.
For example, Sara Santaolalla, Alfredo Perdiguero, here told us about the bodyguards who protect her. And you pay for them, yes.
5 bodyguards and about 10 counter-surveillance personnel. That's what a woman has who has a conviction, a ruling in which the judge does not consider any kind of assault, in which there is a forensic medical report that says there is nothing comparable with an assault, therefore there was no assault. And even so, from the Ministry of the Interior, they consider her at risk in order to keep, as I said, almost 15 police officers assigned to this lady.
Well, Leire, when she went to the Dama press conference and confronted her, then Marlaska assigned her a bodyguard. To Leire, yes, to criminals, they assign bodyguards to such dangerous people. And abused women, well, a police officer easily handles 100 women with just a phone, right? You like Sara Santaolalla, right, Carlos? Very well.
Very well, very well. In fact, I already bought a yellow container so that the day she passes away, they have somewhere to put her, which is where you put plastics, silicone, and all those things. But let's not get confused. I don't think a list of 61 names will ever appear of people who were paid directly by the PSOE or by some communications agency. No. You have to go to the TV talk shows, especially on Spanish television, and see who appears on Forte's program, who are usually regulars, who get paid, I think is 500 euros per talk show or program. Of course, if they go more than 10 times a month, that's 5,000 euros they get just like that. And that's how the Socialist Party pays the coordinated opinion team. Not just on that talk show, but on other TV channels where the same people also go. And what kind of subsidies do they give to media outlets like Público, for example, which has lied so much and has been proven to falsify and manipulate information? In other words, the sectarianism is shown by these people who shape public opinion because they are given a platform in media outlets designated by the party. And later, I imagine what she did was play with all those names, spreading whatever falsehoods she thought were appropriate, trying to muddy the waters because the real mudslinging machine is in the Prime Minister's office. And it's run by Pedro Sánchez Pérez Castejón.
I'll tell you something, and then Luis, as a journalist, I'd like your opinion. Javier Ruiz, who has put himself in the spotlight. Each episode of Javier Ruiz's show costs us 46,000 euros every day. And they say he is a ratings leader, just like Silvia Inchaurrondo, who is in a legal dispute with Spanish television because they changed her contract type and reduced the 250,000 she earns per year. Then there will be their incentives or new shows that they always let the same people host. But let me get to the important part. They say they're ratings leaders, and I don't believe it. I've been on TV for 15 years, and I know all the little tricks they all use. All of them. Look, Kantar Media is the one who used to measure the ratings. Now the company is called 54, 5 Blue. We're talking about 5,900 devices installed in a number of households. A few months ago, in August 2025, the American company H&G took ownership of Kantar Media. They changed the name, changed the CEO. For years, the company Kantar Media had received more than 200 public contract awards. They billed $42 million a year. With the change of owners, the company that measures audiences has signed a contract, a new one with Spanish radio and television in 2026. It has started with 2,300 euros to measure the audiences, surpassing the amount they were paying until now. So are they leaders or do they just pay more? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. Luis, you know how this business works. You've done a lot of television.
Thank you. Yes, I think the audience measurement system is very questionable, especially when the one who is the judge ends up being a party and vice versa. Therefore, I think that should be questioned. Also, there are more factors. First, it's debatable if they are truly audience leaders. Second, in terms of efficiency, the cost that Spanish radio and television represents for us compared to any other private television is absolutely unjustified. And third, which I find even more serious, is that public television is being used to make crude and tacky government propaganda, which I find totally unacceptable. Public television is justified by public service, and right now it is exactly the opposite of public service. Right now, it's exclusively crude government propaganda. And on top of that, blatantly insulting the audience. And I think that's absolutely unacceptable. And then we should seriously consider whether it's worth keeping public television or not, when there's an amazing selection of audiovisual content everywhere, and when, of course, public service is not justified. I think it was great to help all Spaniards learn English, to encourage older people to exercise, to promote niche sports, and so on. But what we're experiencing today is non-stop propaganda, and that's downright sickening.
Why do you think Incho Rondo doesn't get paid much? Because when we said 250,000 a year, Carlos Marcos, you made a gesture as if to say only, but to me, that's a lot, over 20,000 a month, right?
Well, I'll look it up because I don't remember now where I read that wasn't the amount, that she actually made quite a bit more per year. I'll find out and let you know. No, these guys will hit the jackpot. I mean, if Bronca Broncano gets paid 90,000 euros for each show, why should I get paid 15,000 a month? Can't you see they're splitting the pie? Can't you see they don't care? The current president of R2E is there to please the coordinated news team that Pedro Sanchez protects and defends. He doesn't care about the numbers. Spanish television is a drain on every Spaniard's wallet year after year, because it pays outrageous amounts and squanders money like you wouldn't believe. And it rewards audiovisual companies that make certain programs just to avoid making their own productions. That is not just Spanish television itself. In Spain, there is a Spanish television with its own channels, right? Plus 17 regional television stations as well, all funded by public money. More than 6,000 local and municipal radio stations that are also funded by public money. I mean, this is a complete joke. They're bleeding us dry from every side. And just what bad luck at this time when we're all struggling with our tax returns to meet our obligations to the state. And we see how they are throwing our money away by the handful to Leire, Fernan, Avalos, Goldo, the prostitutes who accompanied them, and everyone else at our expense. And I'm fed up with paying taxes just to see how this bunch of scoundrels squanders our money.
I've been told that Incha Rondo gets paid a little more. 253,000, not much more either. And the Spanish television, 1,100,000,000 a year. Forgive me, thank you. So that now we have it like this, and then the people from the other party have it another way. I'm sorry, but I think we need to start shutting down channels. When I turn on the radio and listen in Catalonia, for example, Catalonia radio music, only news, the 324, well, there are 6 radio stations and 2 public TV channels. Just for Catalonia, we're crazy. Then there are the ones from the Provincial Council, the one that used to be on the opposite side, so you have to keep adding people. Well, how many people are we paying salaries to? And they would be dispensable if nobody listens to them anyway. Let them do what we do here, Luis. Not a single euro of public money. How many would survive? Do you think public ones would survive? In the plural, none.
Ninguno. None. And also, there should be transparency in institutional advertising. For example, Ángel Víctor Torres' ministry dedicated 73% of radio advertising to the Prisa group, to the SER network.
Well, and that favoritism, what's the reason for it? There's no established protocol for what the criteria should be.
The criterion, in any case, I think there shouldn't be institutional advertising, but if there is, the criterion should be audience size. Even if the criterion is flawed, even if it's questionable, at least it's supposedly based on some minimum objective data, but these aren't.
These people just give it to their friends without any kind of restraint. That's not acceptable.
Aldama, the last day he was at Horizonte, said this.
But I can tell you about members of the government who have used drugs. And I've seen it. I can say that. In my restaurant at Avalos's birthday. Avalos.
Oh, Victor! It's Victor, the celebration. That members of the government have used drugs? He has seen it. Look, it's obvious. It seems that José Luis Ábalos allegedly did it because in the room in Teruela, which was left destroyed, there were traces. But he's saying too much. Do you have any information about who else might be hooked on that drug?
No, but I think there's also trafficking beyond consumption. Because the words cocaine container appear in Leire's appointment books.
What does that mean? Did she see a container or manage one? That seems more likely, right? Of course. So what happened and what was in Delcy's suitcases?
There's also suspicion that there could have been drugs in there. And why is there that connection between Sanchez and Sheinbaum, who everyone knows is linked to drug trafficking? And why such a close relationship? And between the Sanchez government and the dictatorship in Venezuela, which everyone knows has a close connection to drug trafficking? Well, I think the idea is starting to spread that, in fact, this government, besides being criminal, besides the corruption, besides the bribes, besides the nieces, had a relationship with drug trafficking. And the fact that a container of cocaine appears in Leire's calendar seems disturbing to me.
And then there's drug use on top of that.
But what seems disturbing to me is that the government is involved in drug trafficking, and people are starting to suspect that it could be true.
What you're saying is shocking, but we still have to watch the video, right? Some people have seen it. Here we've had a couple of guests, our friend Dani Esteve from the Socupa, or Jose Manuel Villarejo, who have seen the Plus Ultra video loaded with white packages. If the company was used, as we suspect, for drug trafficking, there was an excessive interest in rescuing it. So it wouldn't disappear, maybe because someone was collaborating with them, right? With that trafficking. No court has opened this can of worms yet, right, Luis? Not a single one so far.
No, because the cocaine container just showed up. But I think that's another thread to pull. And for me, of course, that adds to the suspicion about Delcy's suitcases, etc., etc. And to what we all suspected about the usual practices of several members of the government.
Yes, but it's good that you separate consumption from trafficking. Carlos, any information?
No, but the situation is worrying because now in the government we already have sex, drugs, and we're just missing rock and roll, which maybe is what they're into. But the most important thing of all is to know the contents of that phone, which American intelligence copied from the owner of Plus Ultra at the time. And that's why Zapatero is fighting to throw out that evidence. I'm going to disappoint you. That evidence is legal in the United States. And if the United States, as a country, authorizes us to use it, that evidence, and also there is other precedents in the Supreme Court that confirm that a third foreign country can provide evidence that it has obtained legally in its territory even if the legislation is not the same or comparable to that of the country requesting that information.
And on that phone, there could be anything at all. But for the government to have handed over 53 million euros from our pockets to that tiny company, it's clear there must be force majeure grounds, some major interest. Why? Because maybe the place were used to transport things of great value.
Anyway,
it doesn't give me any peace of mind to know that according to Aldama, at birthday parties, part of the government running the country, or maybe all of it, I don't know anymore, would do lines of
Cocaine to have a good time at the party. Yeah, that's really reassuring.
Yeah. Let's see about the civil guard, Lidia Conchi Meiva.
The problem with the director of the Civil Guard is that this woman has never in her life had anything to do with the military world, nor with the armed forces, nor with anything related to the job she was assigned. She was a journalist, another dirty tricks operative, that's why they put her there.
The Civil War suffered a lot because of the ETA group, and let's not forget that this government is governing with them. So, all our support for all decent people, and of course, Spanish society stands with them.
You shouldn't demand or expect Llamas and those next to the civil guard to resign. They are military personnel, and what needs to be done is a military trial, according to the Royal Military Ordinances. And if they have committed an illegal act, then they should be convicted.
Today, the Director General of the Civil Guard is appearing before a Senate committee. In the UCO report we received a few hours ago, here's what you're about to see. May 11, 2025. It's a Sunday. And the Director General of the Civil Guard exchanges messages with Leire Diaz. Messages that the UCO report is certain have been deleted. And it explains to us why in this report. They had arranged to have lunch, they were friends, they knew each other. Mercedes denied knowing her, the Director General denied knowing Leire. Then she said yes, but just a little. Well, it's absolutely ridiculous. I don't understand how this woman is still in her position and hasn't already been charged and arrested, which is something that's going to happen, right?
Yes, and also protecting, and therefore she's an accomplice. So she's endorsing that absolutely disgraceful behavior. Not only has she been collaborating with the dirty tricks to open cases against those investigating corruption, but they had also given the order to stay on the sidelines. This is extremely serious for the Civil Guard, who have sworn to serve, to work for honor, and in defense of law and order, they are being disgraced in an absolutely shameful way. And I believe what is happening is a response from the UCO saying, this has gone far enough. We are not going to allow anyone to stain our uniform, not even the Director General. But the fact, in my opinion, that the Director General and the DAO remain in their positions seems to me to be further evidence that the government not only allowed it, but actually planned it.
I'm with you. Let's go to the newsroom and then final messages from Carlos, who is eager. Let's see, Susana Gas, tell me.
Greetings to you from the newsroom of Castellón Confidencial. You can't imagine the number of messages we receive every day from our confidential sources from all over the world. Lilian writes to us from Venezuela and reminds us, or reminds you, Albert, not to abandon them at any time. Thank you for everything you have done, for everything you are doing, and for everything you will do. When this is over and Venezuela is free, we would like to walk with you so you can see that city, because the country is also yours. On the other hand, Maru also says that you are the only one so far who has talked about the Iberia plane. I was suspicious, Maru tells us, from the very first moment. I thought it was a little strange, but what was the plane supposed to be like? Well, it should have been the best in the world, but it seems that it wasn't. Something was being hidden in it. Carmen says, I think Zapatero's jewels are bait to keep me in Spain, so I don't investigate the biggest thing he did in Venezuela and also in the United States. Maria Jose says the plane situation was perfect because it showed the Pope what kind of aircraft the Spanish government gave him and what sort of lowlifes ran the country. I'm really glad. And Novas says that socialism is control, above all, controlling the population so that they become very needy, so that they need that state that controls and oppresses them, or rather oppresses us. Of course, the ruling elite keeps getting richer non-stop, and they're definitely going to have very lavish retirements. Susanna says, and she asks us all a question, and if Vigo, by some twist of fate, tells us she can't find her passport in this case, what will happen? I would definitely put her in pre-trial detention, because that's what they would do to any of us right now. Francesca congratulates all of us confidants. She says the only thing missing was for Leire to be in a PSOE NGO with all her friends. Excellent work by Pablo Cambronero, and welcome back to all of you too. Congratulations for all the work you do, the whole team of confidants, uncovering these leaks of public money. And the last one, Rosaluz says, among these naturalized citizens, not all of them are going to vote for Sanchez. Don't believe it. The problem is that I see the fraud with these apparent votes, which are supposed to be cast, but in reality maybe they don't even vote. We'll leave it here. Sí, és important que simpero vello todo perioza sa provar vareka, en que si di en T2 mostrardemes de follows all social networks and platforms. Canales y también en ese diario que tenemos castionconfidencial.com, where we're posting all the interesting interviews that Albert brings us every day. Follow us on social media. Thank you, Albert.
Thank you. And from Lithuania, Sergio has a message for Carlos Marcos.
I think the most qualified person to lead a motion of no confidence could be Carlos Marcos. What I don't know is if they would let him lead it, because he speaks very clearly. He really says things as they are and tells the plain truth. I think he would be a good option, but I still see a motion of no confidence as a long way off, because I don't think the Popular Party will present it.
Let's see, would you accept being the spokesperson, the face of a motion of no confidence presented by the Popular Party, Vox, and other groups? Yes or no, Carlos?
Albert, being the spokesperson for a motion of no confidence isn't an achievement. Remember, Ábalos was the spokesperson for Sanchez's no confidence motion. I mean, any idiot who can read and write could do it. I'm happy to do it, as I see it as a pedagogical necessity. You don't file a motion of no confidence to win it. If you do, great. But sometimes a pedagogical motion of no confidence is necessary to show the Spanish people, to give a voice in the Congress to what millions of Spaniards think. This situation is unbearable and is unacceptable. I don't care if the PSOE says, no, they're wearing themselves out in their own mess. Look, I don't care. I'm not a sadist, and I don't want to see anyone get roasted. What I don't want to see is my country being destroyed without anyone doing something. And from the institutions, in this party-dominated system that we suffer from so often, only the political parties can do something, and not all of them, because Vox, for example, is 2 deputies short of being able to present a motion of no confidence. Well, it seems that the People's Party is not willing. I think that's a serious mistake. Now, I thank this viewer of our program for his suggestion, and I would be delighted to go. I don't know how long they would let me stay in the gallery, or if I would end up being taken out of there in handcuffs. But damn, to have Pedro Sánchez in front of me, and Orangutan too, and to be able to say all these things to their faces, I would be the happiest guy in the world. At least I live there relieved, yes.
Man, and you save yourself a lot of therapy, and you can improve your health. Well, dear Luis, I'll see you on the Distrito TV. Get ready, because next week is going to be intense. There's a lot to talk about. And when Zapatero appears before the judge, that'll be the crucial moment. Wednesday at 9 in the morning. That's tomorrow already. So it's almost here.
Yes. It's going to be exciting. Honestly, this week is a horrible week, but an exciting one.
I'm glad we're all pushing in the same direction, and for now, we're winning battles for the rule of law. Thank you for your help. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Dear Carlos, any final message? Anything else?
Well, this time, Albert, I want to address Mercedes González, the Director General of the Civil Guard. There are people who were surprised that she had ties to Leire. I wasn't surprised. I don't know anyone who looks more like a dirty tricks operative than the current Director General of the Civil Guard. I asked her to leave in honor of the Civil Guard, that esteemed force for the services they have provided to Spain, and to take the Dow with her. and all the commanders who allow themselves to be corrupted and try to influence members of the UCO to look the other way in certain cases. We need a clean civil guard, one that leaves no room for doubt. And the presence of this Director General in the civil war casts doubt and uncertainty on everything. I propose that those responsible for the UCO be appointed as Director Generals of the civil war, and that the entire civil war act the way the members of the UCO are acting, serving the judges. That will help to clean up Spain.
And Spain urgently needs a cleanup, Alberto.
What a disgrace, right? That Mercedes Gonzalez is a journalist. God, what a disgrace for my profession. Friends, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Carlos. Take care. Take good care of yourself.
593,159,304.91. Completely trustworthy.
Gentlemen, even Iranian television has confirmed it, of course, in their own way, as you can see, saying that they have forced the United States to give in, right? An agreement has been reached and the war between Iran and the United States has stopped, which has already caused the stock markets to rise and the price of oil to drop. There is a lot of anticipation. I'm surprised to hear in most Spanish media that Donald Trump had to give in and hasn't managed to change the government in Iran. Was that the goal, to change the government in Iran, or maybe just the consequence? Daniel Lacalle, PhD in economics, how are you, my dear friend?
How are you, Albert? It's great to be with you. Yes.
We need to clarify. I know that in an agreement, everyone wins and everyone loses. But they're manipulating us, aren't they?
Honestly, I find it frankly terrifying to see the media openly and practically without any kind of filter buying into the propaganda of a regime like Iran's, which has clearly been constantly lying. Among other things, it has banned the internet in its own country, so that the reality of the country is known. So at the very least, there should be, let's say, the prudence not to buy into the pro-Iranian narrative. Obviously, this is a very positive agreement, and it's an agreement that Iran has reached, with a level of conditionality that practically none of those media outlets you just mentioned have shown. I mean, the whole agreement is conditioned on the United States monitoring that Iran complies with the agreement. There isn't a concession. Weren't you talking about regime change? Let's see. Something surprised me, Alberto. Let's see. Don't you find it curious that the media just flat out say this whenever they feel like it? The supreme leader of Iran has spoken, and no one has seen this man. You know, at the very least, they should say information is coming from the regime and it should be taken with caution. Because nobody knows where the supreme leader is. He hasn't done it by video, he hasn't done it in any way. Well, those kinds of things amaze me, they really do. Obviously, I'm also amazed by the hatred, this obsession with Trump. But well, that's already unhealthy, so I don't care.
So the important thing about the agreement was that it ended the nuclear weapons project, which was the main thing for the United States, right?
The main thing for the United States, for the Persian Gulf, for all the neighboring countries, and for Israel, was that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. When the regime of Iran had among its objectives America's destruction, death to America, don't forget, and the annihilation of Israel, so here are some absolutely obvious conditions. Condition number 1, the unconditional and unlimited opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, number 2, very important, the delivery of enriched uranium by the Iranian regime and the complete monitoring of the entire dismantling of the Iranian regime's nuclear program. Number 3, third condition, that all hostilities by Iran and Iran's proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, etc., in the area come to a complete end. All of these are conditions. No one here has made the United States back down on anything. In fact, if the United States had wanted to, it could have kept the Strait of Hormuz closed. The United States doesn't care about that at all, because it's the largest oil exporter and the world's biggest oil producer. And most importantly, The one who depends the most on the Strait of Hormuz is Iran. 80% of Iran's exports go through the Strait of Hormuz, and 65% of its tax revenue comes from there. Look at that. Look at what the media doesn't tell you. The Iranian economy is in a depression. Inflation is over 77%. According to data from the Iranian Central Bank, basic food prices have increased by 113%. The economy and the country's currency are at historic lows. It is trading at 1.7 million rials per dollar. In other words, the currency has collapsed, and capital outflow from Iran has increased fivefold. So, then they go and tell you, like, let's see, are we all crazy? The United States at the same time is growing at an annualized rate of 3%. It has inflation that has indeed gone up, but it hasn't even come close to the levels those so-called experts said, who claimed it would reach 7 or 8%. It's at just over 4%. The most important thing is that it's dropping, but really, like a stone. Therefore, it's very important to put things in context. Iran knew it had to reach an agreement for 3 reasons. First, because with every passing moment, the Strait of Hormuz matters less. The news and the infrastructure being developed by Iraq, the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and so on are making it less and less necessary to move volumes through the Strait of Hormuz. Second, and this is very important, their economy is completely devastated and they have run out of reserves. Number 3, and most importantly, the Iranian regime is going back to what you said at the beginning. The regime has been completely shattered. That's why an agreement has been reached in which those who are supposed to be the regime's long-standing leaders not only have had no power at all, but they've also had to swallow, because it's not something I made up. You can look it up yourself. The comments made by the toughest Iranian parliamentarians, the most aggressive ones, from the most radical side of the Ayatollahs, and so on. So the regime has changed as well. Well, all of that is information that the media doesn't want to share because, well, who knows why? The usual reasons.
Well, stories to keep you up at night. Your friend Mili and Bukele started a wave that we're now seeing in Colombia with De La Espriella, and that we're seeing with Keiko Fujimori in Peru. This is going in the right direction, isn't it?
Man, the change that's happening in Latin America is absolutely not only encouraging, but undeniable. We've seen the data in Peru. Keiko Fujimori has clearly won with 100% of the votes counted. Cast in Chile is also very important. What's happening in all the countries is very important, and what has been shown in the elections in Colombia as well, also. Why is this important? Because 2 things have been demonstrated. First, that the radical left is profoundly anti-democratic. All of them, the moment they saw themselves close to losing power, have resorted to violence or to trying to dismantle democratic institutions. And number 2, notice how curious this is. At the moment when the funding for the propaganda of the radical left and socialism, which was coming through the Biden administration, was cut off through USAID, notice how curious this is. They have lost a lot of funds that allow them to manipulate, to get into institutions and so on and so forth. And that's when what the citizens really want comes out, right?
When will it be Spain's turn?
Well, for Spain, we have a problem. In Spain, we have a problem, and that's Llamó.
Pedro Sánchez.
Right? Of course, in Spain, we have a problem called Pedro Sánchez, but above all, the PSOE has a problem. And look, I, just like you, know a lot of people who are good people and who vote for the PSOE, even though everyone can make mistakes. But the PSOE has a serious problem, and that is that it is completely destroying the future, the legacy, and any ability to recover what is already a mafia and a network of corruption that is widespread, right? So here we have a problem because, of course, the only thing keeping Pedro Sánchez in power, who they try to sell us as some kind of master strategist, no, he's not a master strategist, he keeps losing elections. He lost the general elections, and the only thing keeping him is a Frankenstein coalition that is also participating. By omission, they're allowing that web of corruption, right? So obviously it's going to have to be a factor, since the evidence we're seeing is dozens and dozens. I don't know if this happens to you, but every day I have to choose which news story is going to outrage me, because there are so many that you end up picking from like 10. So here we are experiencing an assault on democracy and independent institutions. There's a campaign by Sanchez's propaganda trying to say that judges are corrupt, that journalists are corrupt, that everyone who doesn't buy into Sanchez's agenda is corrupt. And this is an international embarrassment for these people. The judges are impeccable when it comes to all the requirements and the demands of the law. Or is it only someone from the right who gets convicted or charged? And yet, the moment it affects them, they go straight to slander, to cancellation, to vetoing, and to the character assassination of independent professionals.
Well, I hope it doesn't last long and that someday we can talk about how to recover this country with you, and that it won't be long before we do it. Daniela Calle, a hug, doctor. Thank you very much.
A big hug, always a big hug.
And I'm receiving very interesting things from you. For example, this image shows scholarships for African women in the Canary Islands. What you're hearing was sent to me by Jose Manuel. He says, in recent years, they've cut scholarships in the Canary Islands for more than 5,000 young people because they say there's no budget. Can someone explain to me how you can offer a scholarship only for African women? Well, I think it's illegal. You can't offer a scholarship just for them. You can give direct aid if necessary, but a scholarship seems very illegal to me. Thank you, Jose Manuel. In Irun, Fran sends me this video. It's very curious. You see a van with a French license plate and a police officer gets out. Let's see. The van stops and 7 or 8 immigrants get out. And with his arm, he even points them toward the center of Irun, saying, that way, that way. Look, these are so-called pushbacks. The French police, when they catch an illegal immigrant who has just entered their country through our border, should go through a whole process, just like we do here, where we deal with it for months and months, right? Not there, they put them in a vehicle that's not even a police car, so it doesn't look like they're interfering in another country, and they drop them off in Irun. The French police have been doing this sloppy job for years, and that's why we're showing it here, to see if anyone actually follows their own law. Because here we take on everything. We put up with everything here. That's enough. That's enough. Maybe that's what's happening to me, like Julio Anguita said many years ago. It's curious because Anguita was very communist, but I think I was wrong, and it wasn't just that. It was much more. He says, it's not about changing masters, but about no longer being a dog. Good for Anguita, no matter what he thought. Well, and thank you very much, Diego, for your support.
Thank you for everything you do to tell the truth, to teach us the truth, and to make sure the truth is above everything. Watching you all the way from Tarragona. A big hug.
Thank you, Diego. Hugs to the good people of Tarragona, who are the great majority. By the way, I've been told, and some of you have also asked me, if it's true that they're gonna start issuing fines. If you put the air conditioning unit on the building's facade, are they ready to collect no matter where it comes from? So if it's on the facade, they'll fine you, and the fines can go up to 3,000 euros. You have to put it in the light well or on the terrace or roof, if there is one. It can be visible from the street. It's a regulation that's gonna collect millions. Just another one. As always, it affects the poorest people. The ones who do that don't have a mansion, right? Like most members of the government have. Well, Antonio is talking more about housing. It's important.
The issue of housing in Spain is terrible. It couldn't be worse. First, they have allowed tourists to buy properties, and not just luxury properties, but in some cases the cheapest properties. The ones that should be reserved for workers, for people who don't have high purchasing power and who are from here, who live here in Spain. This has caused major inflation, which has considerably increased the price of housing and rent. They have also encouraged real estate speculation.
Well, Freud Lannister. I think this actually happened. Sanchez is watching the Pope on TV blessing children, and of course...
Bolaños! Bolaños! This is unacceptable.
Your order, Santidad.
The Pope blesses children. Why can't he do it and I can't?
Well, you see.
What?
Because he's the leader of a religion, beloved leader. And of course...
Isn't Catholicism a religion, you idiot?
Seen that way, we could say yes.
But no buts, Mortadelo! Tomorrow, I want you then to bless Casco Porro. Do you understand me?
Alright, understood. I'll get on it.
You'll have everything ready tomorrow.
It's just that I have to do everything myself. Damn, Bolaños, this baby is really heavy and ugly as hell. Actually, it reminds me of someone.
Finding babies seeking blessings in Charolicism hasn't been easy, beloved leader. I'm not paid enough to deal with this.
What? Mortadelo, the baby spoke.
No way. Santidad must have imagined it.
You know what's worse? Yes. He pretended to be blessing children. Yesterday we showed the image. Please take a look. There it is. Santidad picked up children. He didn't dare to make the sign of the cross, but he did put his hand on their heads. Poor kid. Someone needs to do an exorcism or something on that child. It could catch any disease. Well, more. Sanchez is also from Freud Lannister, with Santos, Cerdán, and Leire in the sewers.
You're late, Santos.
Yes, Sanchi. I mean yes. Mysterious leader. I'm sorry.
Have you started what I asked you to do? How's it going? Yes.
Yes, mysterious leader with a bit of a sauna smell. I'm forming an elite team and will introduce its leader to you.
Hi, Pedro.
Who is this woman? Why is Santos filming me? Why is she saying my name?
It's the best I found among the socialists.
No, Pedro. Can you get my cousin a job?
And I want money.
Well, yes, of course. Santos handles that.
Yes, Leire, here you go. Careful, it's for the European election campaign.
Wow, there must be at least 100 euros here.
Is this really your best option? Is there no one else on the team?
Yes, don't worry, Pedro. I'm going to call my assistant. She's super trustworthy, you know? I met her today at a bar. I asked her if she wanted to be part of a criminal plot, and she was really excited.
Come on, Uko. You can come now.
What the hell? What do you mean, Uko?
Of course. His name's on the tag. Isn't that funny?
Uko, let me show you the sewer and its leader. Don't speak. That's Pedro Sánchez, the president. Isn't that right, Mr. President? President?
You're a real idiot.
Bolaños, I'm Santos.
Sorry, it's just a habit. Something like that must have happened. The truth is, when you see Leire and how loose-lipped she's been, you wonder what Froilan says, and you see it. Seriously, wasn't there anyone smarter in the PSOE to run a dirty tricks operation than that lady? Yeah, well, it seems not. Fortunately, because now we know everything. Well, to finish, the trendy PSOE photo is this one, the initials, made with Zapatero's jewels. It's good. And to finish, there's an AI-generated video of Pedro Sánchez saying goodbye to his brother who's going to prison.
Well, little brother, take care. I hope you have enough in prison. Thanks, little brother. With what you've given me, I won't lack anything. Goodbye and take care.
We'll see. You think so? It won't be easy. With David, it won't be easy. With Begoña, it won't be easy. Maybe with Sanchez and Zapatero, yes. There are many more alleged crimes, and they are very serious. Friends, what a story, what a week, so much information. And get ready, because there'll be more tomorrow. I'll be waiting for you here at La Trinchera.
Tú lo sabes y yo lo sé. Somos confidenciales. Tú eres confidencial. Yo soy confidencial. confidenciales. Todos confidenciales. Pero solo para mentes abiertas y para gente despierta. Desde la trinchera las balas silban y no hay manera de salir allá afuera. Aquí la libertad tiene las alas de cera. Albert Castillo, Susana Gash, Tucci Castillo y demás, muchas gracias. Con esto y un bizcocho, hasta mañana a las 8.
Castellón Confidencial.
By Albert Castellón.